Ew, gay people can't live there.
Gross. Queer people don't live there. Stop trying to make it a thing.
These are just some of the negative comments we've heard when we mention that LGBTQ people live in red or purple states.
What doesn't happen? Doesn't happen. So for those of you who don't know, there are about 5 million people who live in red states alone, not including the purple, right?
In red states, there are an estimated 4.486 million LGBTQ adults living in those red states.
Yeah. So LGBTQ plus people do live in red states. We're
Surprise.
actually surprised from
Surprise,
surprise.
surprise.
We've actually so we've been doing this most affordable LGBTQ plus friendly cities series now for over a year. I can't remember exactly how long, but for over a year. And we're actually surprised by the hostility, the animosity we've gotten from some people when we dare talk about a red city in a red state or a blue city even in a red state. The amount of privilege that just drips with some of the comments is quite surprising and very dismissive. Some of the negative comments that we've received, in addition to that very interesting opening that we just shared with you, was one person said LGBTQ plus people in red states is self-harming. That says a lot. This video is totally out of touch with gay reality, suggesting that gay people didn't live in whatever city or state it is that we were talking about, as we just alluded to. That's untrue. Another commenter said, why both of those states are hard for LGBTQ plus people from a states' rights perspective, and Ohio is actively trying to get rid of all the trans treatments, even for adults. And we're familiar with that because we actually sit in a blue city in the red state of Ohio. And then another commenter said, why in the backwoods hillbilly hell would a queer person ever want to go anywhere near West Virginia? And I think that one came from TikTok. And that person got taken down pretty aggressively from people who commented from West Virginia who are LGBTQ plus and were also on TikTok. So that was quite entertaining. It was very Schadenfreudig. Is that a word?
Yeah.
For David and me.
It was just very eye-opening to see how many queer people on TikTok basically said, in a sense, they said, shut the fuck up. There are a lot of great reasons to be a queer person in West Virginia. Maybe it's not the panacea like you think it is wherever you're at, but there are a lot of great reasons and reasons why we love it here. We'll share some of those in just a minute here.
And I think what those kinds of comments tend to do, I mean, the more courageous, bold responses people were the ones who kind of pushed back on that comment on TikTok. But I just don't, there are a lot of people who maybe read that and didn't have the courage to respond. And it kind of just, I think, kind of steals a little bit of their soul to feel so dismissed like that from somebody who comes from, I'm guessing, I call them the parentheses states, from a more privileged position, kind of just dismissing out of hand that they don't come from the right place. And I think, the part of the reasons why we decided to do this series was because almost every other listicle that we find that talks about great places for LGBTQ plus people to travel to or to live is just mostly focused on the culture and the nightlife and the bars and the restaurants and does it have a bathhouse, and doesn't, it completely disregards whether or not somebody can actually afford to live there. And not everybody's earning 6+ figures.
Right.
Not everybody has gone to college and it can get an Ivy League, has an Ivy League degree and can, run the nonprofit or work for, the Biden administration.
Yeah. I think that we have to remember, there are a lot of LGBT people who are earning significantly less than the average of the community. We know that roughly about 22%, 24% of our community is at or below the poverty line. These are people who we created these lists and these to give people a unique or different perspective to add to the other information. And it's all, this is all, we all are unique. We all know what we want and what we like. And so we have to take that into consideration, that when we're sharing this kind of information, we're putting it out there for some people who maybe don't want to live in a big city, or some people who have given up on the gay scene. I remember seeing a lot of comments on Facebook about this a few years back in Denver. People saying, I I don't want to be a part of the gay scene because the gay scene is only about drinking and drugs and brunching on Sunday. And they're like, I want a different kind of life than that.
And I think we shouldn't shame people into financial precarity just so that they live in the right place. Let people live where they want to live and don't dismiss them because that's what they choose to do.
Right. So, why do queer people live and move to these seemingly unwelcoming destinations? Well, here's a couple of quotes that we wanted to use as to counterbalance the original ones. One person said, I lived in Morgantown, West Virginia for 10 years and can confirm that it's the most queer friendly town in West Virginia, while Charleston could be a distant second. Another person who actually welcomed us to Charleston when we visited Charleston on the Queer Money live tour back in 2019, they responded with one of the comments and they said, Charleston, West Virginia's Pride now has 10,000 attendees annually.
That's crazy. And I think they said it when we were there in 2019, it was just over 1,000.
I think so. So it's clearly starting to attract
crazy.
more people. I think especially probably people coming from Morgantown because
Sure.
it's not that far away. Another person commented, and this is a little bit of maybe a little bit of medicine, a dose of medicine for some of us. They said, a hard truth about blue cities and states is that they are unwilling to build new housing, which means home prices and rents spike. And we will have that episode, Why the Hell Are Home Prices So Expensive, coming out next Tuesday. So make sure you listen to that one. But they continued, what good does it do to live in San Francisco or other liberal places if you're constantly worrying about paying rent and mortgage, right? Your financial mental health. Your mental health affected by your financial state is a huge thing. And to be honest, it's the reason why some people move to lower cost of living areas. We're seeing a mass of people moving out of California. And part of that is because it is so damn expensive in California. Maybe it's the perfect place for you, but it may not be the perfect place for somebody who earns less than you.
One of our colleagues, the city nerd, just kind of pretty much said that the state of California is the most NIMBYist state in the union.
Right. Because of the fact that they have so many zoning laws.
Homes.
Yeah, there's
build
so many zoning laws that don't allow for higher density building. Finally, a commenter said, I would venture to say that Ohio's largest population city, Columbus, is truly a wonderful mecca that wholeheartedly welcomes gays from all over the USA and the world, though Ohio is now a red state. And you are right. Ohio is now a red state. And you are right that Columbus is a very, very welcoming city. We have been there a couple of times and absolutely loved it. We are going to be coming back in October for the Queer Money Live Tour 2024.
You keep saying September.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. It's in September. So with that in mind, here are the 7 reasons why we believe that LGBTQ folks either move to or stay living in red states.
Exactly. So number one, if you can't tell, is financial privilege. Not everybody has that privilege to be able to just live in a blue city, in a blue state. And per Market Watch, the average cost of moving long distances is between $1,000 and $7,500 if you're doing self-service. If you have the muscle boys coming over that you're paying to help move your heavy couch and TV, that can range.
Or if you're if you're a disabled person, there are a fair number of disabled people in our community who would have to do this.
You have to hire professional movers. That can cost between $4,200 and $12,000. That's a barrier to entry that a lot of people simply don't have. That's even before they have to deal with the increased cost of living and all the additional expenses from living in a more expensive location or a more liberal location. So we just have to acknowledge that. Costs of going to out-of-state college, we all know this. This isn't novel information, is always more expensive to go out of state college than it is to go to in-state. Per bestcolleges.com, the average cost of in-state tuition in all 50 states, including DC, is about $10,215. But out-of-state tuition can average as high as $27,000 per year, which is a 260% increase. That is not insignificant, and people just don't have, the pocketbook to be able to pay for that.
Right. I think you take into consideration that a lot of these individuals who are living in red states are living in lower cost of living areas, oftentimes are earning a lot less. And because they're earning a lot less, being able to send their kid, or you as a student when you're 18 years old, saying, I'm just going to get a bunch of student loans and move to California, you may not even qualify for that, let alone be able to afford that kind of those kind of student loans when you get out of school. So I think it is a really important thing to remember. Some people stay where they're at because they understand their financial situation. Another reason why some people stay where they're at or maybe move back to a red state or to a red state is because of family ties. This is our second reason. Many of LGBT folks, many of us end up taking care of family members. Many of us have family members or close friends that are in red states, and so sometimes we want to go back to that kind of community, be with our family and our friends.
We just talked with a notable LGBTQ plus influencer yesterday, and that's the very reason that they moved back to Texas, was because they were the only one left to be able to take care of. I don't know if it was their mom and dad or somebody else, but their family.
I think it was their dad. They moved from Washington D.C. back to Austin in part to take care of family, and that is very common. Oftentimes, LGBTQ folks do not have children, and our siblings will look at us and say, "You don't have kids. You have all the time in the world. You should take care of mom and dad." And although that may not be fair, it may be a responsibility that many of us feel put upon us, and we just end up dealing with that.
Exactly. Our third reason why people might live in a red state or move to one is just simply cost of living. Per U.S. News and World Report, this is so fascinating. They measure the cost of living in all 50 states, and the top 10 most affordable states are all red. The top 10 most expensive states for cost of living are all blue. So,
And it makes sense. I mean, we all know that why it's more expensive. It's nice to live in a place where you have all sorts of services and you have all sorts of benefits of being in a democratic run system in one of those blue cities or blue states. But that doesn't mean that you automatically make more money, right? And so you may not be able to afford it. There's that financial privilege that some people have. The fourth reason is career opportunities, and I think a lot of people discount this one. There are certain industries and job opportunities are more prevalent in red Republican states. There is a reason why we are seeing a migration of people towards red states, and that is a lot of that has to do with the fact that corporations are migrating towards red states. We're seeing corporations moving out of California to places like Texas or Florida because the cost of living is lower there. That means that the workers that they're hiring are going to be being paid less than places like California.
corporate taxes are lower. There's also offered more incentives.
Exactly. And so we know that, I even think about the financial services industry and the banking sector. There are so many companies that have relocated to places like Dallas, Raleigh, and Charlotte, in part because they are able to afford, the companies are able to afford or more likely to be able to afford being there. So they just take employees with them. And, if you are brand new to that company or you're early on in your career, it may make more sense for you to stay with that job and move to that state. Or say, for example, if you are in your 50s or 60s, you don't want to be thinking about leaving a company and trying to get a new job. We know the age discrimination that takes place in the workforce today may be the reason why a lot of older queer people are sticking with the company that they are with that is taking them to one of these red states.
Exactly. So, time for your weekly station identification. You're listening to or watching Queer Money episode number 523. We're continuing to share our most affordable LGBTQ plus friendly cities in all different shapes, sizes, and packages. Today's a little bit more of a rebuttal to some of the haters we've gotten on social media. We just want to acknowledge that there are reasons why people live here.
Yeah, and it was funny because one of the comments said that we got on YouTube recently said, "Thank you for calling out the bitchiness," and I thought that was kind of funny. So,
Last week we covered the most affordable LGBTQ plus friendly cities for queer families.
Capital One Auto Navigator does more than just auto financing. We're here to help you find a car you love, too. Shop millions of cars from thousands of dealers nationwide. Research your favorite makes and models. Explore dealers near you and more. All on Auto Navigator.
all right, coming in at as our fifth reason why someone may want to live or move to a red state is that they actually want to fight for LGBTQ rights, and they want to do it in the states where it is having the biggest impact right now. As a matter of fact, David Roth just shared on Tuesday's episode 2 days ago about Project 2025 and how significant that is and the impact it will have on us if the Trump administration is elected, and the sweeping changes that they plan on making literally within a couple of hours of him being elected and sworn in. There are thousands of people that they have lined up to be able to take over jobs that will completely change the government system that we live in. So I don't want to minimize why someone may be an, or don't want to minimize someone's being an activist, but I will say this. Living in and fighting for LGBTQ rights in places like Idaho, Mississippi, West Virginia is very different than doing the same work from New York, San Francisco, and Denver. And so, in my opinion, and my interaction with people who are doing this kind of work in Ohio, in West Virginia, in some of these red states, is that I think that these people are true battleground heroes. These are the people who are doing the major fight for our rights. They are also the people who are there as the visible part of our community to be the response back to all these people who are trying to push their religious agenda on the rest of the country and on our community. And it's, as a matter of fact, it's part of the reason why we ended up moving to Toledo, Ohio. We know that our dollars here and the time that we spend in the community here goes a lot further to helping people here than it ever did when we lived in blue states.
Exactly. Our number 6 reason is just a general sense of community. Their queer youth in red states desperately need safe spaces and safe people. And, straight people keep breeding more gay kids. So somebody's got to be here to take care of them, right?
Yep. Right.
And, unfortunately, for a lot of people, blue states aren't necessarily as inclusive as we would like them to be. We know a lot of people who have left cities like New York City or LA or San Francisco because they felt so alone. They couldn't create a sense of community. Sometimes they weren't able to connect with a particular clique or a particular crowd. And so they just didn't have that sense of community that we all need in some way, shape, or form. And our experience is, and what we've seen on social media, is that the communities in blue states can somewhat be exclusive, and red states some a little bit more open. In fact, we've referenced this several times. There was an NBC article out a couple weeks ago, or actually, April 1st that came out, talked about how the migration of transgender people to blue cities in red states, because they just simply felt this better sense of community in what is otherwise a prohibited place for us to go to. Yeah. So if you found what we were talking about today or any of this series helpful in any way, shape, or form, please smash that like and share button. Let other LGBTQ plus people know about this show, this episode, or this series. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One, N.A., member FDIC.
All right. Our 7th and final reason is people are people. We all have our own preferences. What? Diversity of preference within the LGBT community?
We're supposed to be diverse in any way, shape, or form, except for our thoughts and personal preferences.
Unheard of, right? Some people, for whatever reason, and we're not going to judge this, they prefer a culture or a social atmosphere that may be in states that are deemed red states, whether it's the pace of life, the local traditions, or the community values that the city or town that they live in. They just enjoy that life. They may have created a life that they love, and the state that they live in has shifted further and further to the right. We know this, for example, with the state of Florida. 10 years ago, Florida was a completely different place. It was much more LGBTQ friendly at the state level. And if you move there to retire, or you are you move there because of the cost of living, it may not be feasible for this person, or maybe not even physically possible for them to just up and move. And they may have built a life that they actually love there right now. And for them, there isn't a real strong reason to leave. And that could be combined with many of the other reasons that we mentioned above as the reason why some people are just saying, I'm going to stay put.
Exactly. So those are just 7 reasons why LGBTQ plus people might move to or stay in a red state or a red city. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comments on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, or wherever you happen to follow us. And then if you'd like to see this data that we keep compiling, and it's getting larger and larger and larger, please go to queermoneypodcast.com/cities.
The mission of Queer Money is to financially empower the LGBTQ plus community. Join us in thanking Capital One for supporting that mission.
Before we end, I just wanted to share that in no way are John and I ever recommending that someone move to a red state or that someone stay in a red state. All we're saying here is that as a community, let's be generous with the reasons why someone may end up staying or move to a red state. And let's take the judgment out of judging people rather than just judging what the religious right and the conservative right are doing in those states. With that in mind, join us next Tuesday when we talk with Angela Rosman about how home values or why home values are so damn high. And then next Thursday when we share the most affordable LGBTQ-friendly cities in the Sun Belt. Guess what? It's kind of red.
If you'd like to see the data for this growing series that we're compiling, please go to queermoneypodcast.com/cities or click the link in your podcast player if you're listening on your podcast player. Thank you and have an amazing weekend.
Bye.